everybody? This is Adam Fromal and Dan Favale here with the Full Court Press. Today we want to talk about one of the biggest events of the NBA season. Yeah, it's happened already. It's Kobe Bryant returning from injury. He returned against the Toronto Raptors and debuted with 9 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals, but it wasn't exactly a positive debut. He didn't shoot well from the field, going 2 of 9. He had 8 turnovers, and of course the Lakers got the loss. So Dan, I want to figure out what our expectations are for him this year. And I think more often than not, when it's a superstar returning from injury, whether it's Kobe or Derrick Rose, we tend to have these ridiculous, almost unreachable expectations for them because we've conditioned ourselves to believing that they can do nothing but be great. And I had my doubts about Kobe being even good this season at first because it's such a devastating injury that he's returning from. He's already 35 years old, and there just isn't much of a track record for people coming back from Achilles in general, much less at this age. So I kind of want to know where you stand on those expectations.
It's so tough to gauge because, like you said, the injury is a difficult one to come back from when he's 35. But then on the other hand, he's Kobe. And I know we hate to use that excuse, but it's Kobe is a reason. And his work ethic is insane. And he's justified everything to this point. And watching him against the Raptors, he was moving fairly well. When he was backpedaling, my jaw dropped. I couldn't believe he was backpedaling. I thought we were going to see him looking over his shoulder all night. But you still don't know. It's one game. He didn't look great. It was his first game back. I still could see him being a top 10 at best, maybe like a top 15 or 20 superstar this season. Probably one of my biggest questions is how is he going to react to a minutes cap? And it's going to be there. I don't know if they'll let him play over 30 most nights. I'd be shocked to see it if they do that before it's crunch time, really, where the playoffs are within reach or they get to the playoffs. And he's never had you also have to look at that. He's never had someone tell him, you can't play these minutes. Like, he's been coaching himself for...
No, whenever that happens, he's like, fuck that, I'm going in anyway.
Yeah, he's been coaching himself for, what would you say, probably like 13 or 14 years? In terms of minutes. So how's he going to respond to that, too? And can he be effective in 30 minutes? Maybe he's the type of guy that can only sit 10 minutes a game to get into his groove. So those are my biggest questions. I still think he'll be someone we can call a star that's not necessarily living off his reputation, but producing like a star. Not a top 5 guy. Like, last season was insane. If he never got injured, imagine what we could be watching right now. But I could still see him as a 20-plus points per game, 5 assists, 5 rebounds guy.
Yeah, there were 3 things during that game against the Raptors that really stood out to me as positives. And the first was his commitment to defense. That first steal he had against DeMar DeRozan in the corner that led to a fast break run out was a great sign to me. The second was how well he moved and how confident he looked. And just from the first pass he made to Pau Gasol for an assist, he looked like he was comfortable, even if he wasn't necessarily producing, right? And third is he's still an incredibly skilled player. I mean, the first bucket he made was that pump fake, I'm going to shoot it lefty because I want to imitate Larry Bird, right? It's mind-boggling how many different moves this guy has in his arsenal, and I think that's the biggest thing that points towards his success to me. It's his ability to adapt and to adjust to whatever his body is limiting him to.
We've kind of seen the adjustment for the past few years, actually. More of his shots have come from the outside. Not as many have come at the rim. And so it's almost like he's been preparing, not for this injury, but he's been preparing for age. Age is going to get everyone, no matter who you are. And you're right that his first shot of the game had that Larry Bird, Andre Miller feel to it. Not to compare the two, but to combine them.
Yeah, let's not do that, please.
I said combine, not compare. And he's fully aware of it. You don't see players like Derrick Rose. Let's compare it to Derrick Rose, who keeps saying, I'm going to come back better. I'm still going to be explosive. I'm more explosive. Kobe's like, if the explosiveness isn't there, I'm going to be Andre Miller. I'm going to be Larry Bird. And it's great to see him grasp that. The one thing I would disagree with you on is I didn't think he looked comfortable almost at all last night. On defense, he was really good. He looked comfortable. But on offense, I kind of got the sense that he wanted to do more, but was afraid to, 1, disrupt the Lakers' chemistry, and 2, test that Achilles too much. I think he talked a little bit about explosion afterwards, and I still think he's trying to get the feel for what it's going to be like to come off that left foot. So I don't think he looked comfortable at all. I think some of the stuff we saw, like that one pass at the beginning is good things. He was trying to make the right pass all night. His teammates were not ready. He probably should have
There was
finished.
that one fast break where he actually turned down what could have been his first shot to dish it back to a cutter, and that was great. I loved seeing that.
Yeah, but think almost the missed opportunities from his teammates last night. He probably could have had like 3 to 5 more assists. But I don't think he looked comfortable enough. I think it was a great first step. I think everyone's going to look at 8 turnovers, 9 points, which, by the way, is only the second time in his career that he's scored under 10 and committed at least 8 turnovers. But he's 35. He's just coming back. I think he'll be fine.
I think I should backtrack a little and rephrase and say that I mean comfortable for a player making his debut late in the season coming off an injury. He looked more comfortable than I would have expected to see him in that situation.
I would totally agree with that, especially for the amount of time. He was out for a long time, but really he wasn't in terms of the injury. Like, people are supposed to be out at least 10 months, I was reading.
Well, he was right in the middle of the time frame. It's 6 to 8 months typically. And
Well,
this is what, 8?
I thought they said for the part of his Achilles that was damaged, or the procedure they did, that it was 10 to 12 months was the average or the mean recovery time.
Okay.
Even if he's in the middle, though, it's still impressive for him to come back that soon and also not that soon and be able to run the floor like he was. We're not even talking about shooting, just running the floor, backpedaling. Like, that's an accomplishment at this point.
We've seen this year, because we now have access to that Sport View data, just how much these guys run during an average game. I mean, it's not like they're out there running a mile over 30 minutes. They're out there pushing 3 miles.
And
so
he's playing in a late...
It's dynamic movement, which makes it even more impressive.
And for me, it makes him even more impressive. Even though the Lakers' offense hasn't been as high-powered as it should be under D'Antoni, I mean, you have to look at the players he's been fielding. They're not great scorers. But, like, they still push. And it wasn't like he was lagging behind. So, again, it's just to see him moving. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for movements. I'm looking for, on defense, was he afraid to go through screens? He was trying to take charges last night. Did you see that? He hit the ground like 3 or 4 times. So
that's great to see.
I'm looking for, he's not even, like, I'm looking for things like that. He doesn't appear scared. He doesn't appear worried. Again, there's that hesitation, but how long has he been out? 8 months. So you got to give him time to get back. I don't think he'll be the same Kobe. I think it's physically impossible. If he is the same Kobe, I think we'll all be shocked out of our minds.
But he hasn't really been the same Kobe over the last couple of years anyway. His game has constantly been evolving, as we expected it to.
Well, I'm talking in terms of the one thing he's always done is play 38, 40 minutes if he has to. I think those days are over, at least for this year, probably forever. But you're right. I think he's always going to be Kobe because he doesn't need to be one type of Kobe. I think that's one of the best ways to describe him.
I think that's fair. Now, you said earlier that you could see him being a top 10, top 15 player, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with the top 15. I don't know that I want to go so far as to say top 10, and it's solely because of that minutes cap that I think we're inevitably going to see. It's kind of like Tim Duncan last year. He was absolutely phenomenal.
Tony Parker this year, too.
Yeah, I mean, you could make an argument that those guys play like top 5 players, even Duncan last year. But because they're limited by their coaches and by how much their bodies can withstand, we have to knock them down a little. So I'd say that I can see him coming in at that like 15 to 20 range, right on the verge of being worth consideration for like an all NBA team.
I wouldn't disagree at all. My one question would be, what do you see his ceiling for? And it's really early to start talking about this, but let's talk next season. Full off season worth of regular workouts, training camp under his belt. Do you think if he's able to stay in that top 15 to top 20 range, do you see an opportunity of him actually improving leading into next year?
I do, because he's going to have more experience with the role that he's currently playing in, and that's going to be sort of the combo guard. He experimented with it last year. There was that one stretch of games where we were like, oh my gosh, Kobe might be able to be the best point guard in the NBA. And whether he's functioning as the point guard or the shooting guard for that team is going to be up in the air, and it really depends on who else is out there and whether Steve Nash ever plays basketball again / is effective ever again.
Were you as upset as I was that we didn't see any Swaggy P, Kobe Bryant pick and rolls the other night?
I was. I think we will eventually, especially as he starts to play more at the one. But the more experience he has, not just controlling the ball, but controlling it with the intent to distribute, the better he's going to become. And we've constantly seen him take on new burdens, and maybe it takes a little while, but he slowly starts to excel in that because he's Kobe Bryant. He's going to be able to handle any task you throw at him.
I think it's also worth noting that this exact transition is one that he handled last season. He was the point guard, and not only did he play well, the Lakers were better off. They won more than 70% of their games when he dished out his season average worth of assists, which was 6. His season average,
which is insane in itself.
Because they were only 45 and 37 to begin with, and it's just his season average. So, again, if he has the right guys around him, and I'm not going to say he does right now, but he has guys around him who can score, if he's going to look to dish, defenses are never not going to collapse on Kobe. Because they've watched him for 17 years before. They know what could happen if they don't. And it's always going to be available for everybody else. So I'm kind of excited to see him become this, point shooting guard. He's not really a point forward, but I'm interested to see how well he does under it. I think it takes a lot of pressure off the need to be explosive. Point guards don't need to be explosive. Yeah, they need to get in the paint, but they don't need to rise up and land on their feet. And it doesn't take the ball out of his hands, but at the same time it alleviates the scoring burden.
It's sort of weird that a member of the old guard of the NBA, if you will, is going to be at the forefront of this positional revolution that we're seeing with a lot of other guys as well, whether it's LeBron James or Anthony Davis. Just because there isn't a point guard or a shooting guard when Kobe's on the court. He's going to function as both, and it's different than what we're seeing. So it's just, for me at least, it's hard to wrap my head around the fact that this veteran with well over a decade of experience under his belt is going to be ushering that change in, and it's something that the Lakers could continue to use.
I think it's even weirder that neither of us are concerned. We're just talking about it like it's a matter-of-fact success, and this is a guy who's played almost 2 decades, and we're just like, yeah, it's going to happen, and it's going to be good.
It's hard for us to doubt the guy.
You know who it's not hard for us to doubt? Someone by the name of Rudy Gay was just traded to the Kings. I really want to know your thoughts on, you were kind of complaining about this before we went on. I really, really want to know your thoughts on both sides of this deal.
I'm not sure that my thoughts have stopped bouncing around and come to a firm conclusion quite yet for either team.
So you don't have a winner or a loser?
The winner is the Raptors. They got rid of Rudy Gay. But how big winners they are is still kind of up for interpretation. I mean, I like it and I don't like it for both teams because Toronto gets to clear off some cap space. I mean, they now go from a guy who could opt in for $19 million next year to having $7 million in guaranteed salary because Salmons has the $1 million on the book. So Masai Ujiri is already starting to make moves. I think we're going to see Kyle Lowry moved in a salary dump pretty soon now that they have Vasquez. So that's good. And it's still hard to tell whether they got better or worse. This might be the classic case of addition by subtraction with Gay. He had minus 0.4 offensive win shares heading into that trade. But it's hard to tell, A, what they want. Or do they want to be in the playoffs in the East? Do they want a high draft pick? I don't think anyone really knows. And B, whether they got better or worse. And then on the flip side, we have Sacramento, who all of a sudden acquired this 27-year-old forward with loads of potential, who could make a very intriguing Robin to DeMarcus Cousins' Batman. But he could also opt in for $19 million and completely wreck whatever they're trying to do for the future. So, honestly, I have no idea.
If you had to pick right now, gun to the head, who got the better end of the deal? Toronto. Again,
they got rid of Gay. I mean, isn't it telling that they took him off the market a couple days ago because there was not enough interest?
I mean, you got to look at how he's played. The market for him is gone, which is why I would be shocked. I mean, I guess not shocked, but I would almost be surprised if he opted in next season, because if he has another season like the one he's having, he could very well be looking at a contract where someone will only pay him a couple $1 million. And I'm not even kidding. He might have to pull them onto Ellis.
Again, I could see it both ways, though, because there is still a lot of general managers out there who aren't embracing analytics and who are still going to see, this is a guy that commands double teams, and he can still create shots whether or not he's hitting them.
Which is why
there is going to be there is going to be someone who gives him like a 4-year, $45 million deal.
Well, that's why I see him. I'll be surprised if he doesn't opt out. I'm saying we're talking almost 2 years down the line. That contract could all of a sudden become 3 years, $20 million. Because if he has another season like the one he has this one, it could. Again, that's the extreme case. But you go for the guaranteed money. You do the Robinson Cano. You go for the guaranteed money. So I'm not. You're right. You could see it going both ways. I don't particularly hate this deal for either team. Kind of like yourself, I could see it being how it could be bad for both teams. But the Kings is an especially intriguing dynamic now because one, I'm interested to see how Gay does as a stretch four. I love stretch fours almost as much as I love pizza, and I want to also see if he makes them worse. It's kind of like a catch-22 because he could make them better, and then they have this guy who they compare with DeMarcus Cousins for the next season and a half, and be fun to watch or something. Or either he makes them worse, like he pretty much did the Raptors, and they play in a Western Conference. So if Gay isn't marketably better than the players they traded away combined, they're still going to wind up with a top 5, top 7 lottery pick. So it's not the. Go ahead.
Speaking of fun to watch, Isaiah Thomas, Ben McLemore, Rudy Gay, Derek Williams, DeMarcus Cousins. Where does that rank in your most exciting to watch lineups?
It ranks right behind the lineup that I want to see, which is Isaiah Thomas, Jimmer Fredette, Ben McLemore, Rudy Gay, and DeMarcus Cousins. Free Jimmer. I've been on that for a while.
Small ball?
I love small ball, you know it. But it'll be a fun lineup to watch. My biggest question, actually, in the lineup you said, isn't Gay. It's Derek Williams. I have serious doubts about him being that interchangeable forward. Right now I haven't seen anything that makes me think he could be a small forward. I could see him being a power forward with some range who isn't necessarily a stretch 4, but I can't see him being a consistent 3 right now. Again, it could change in this. Again, West Coast offenses help everybody, but I have serious doubts about Derek Williams' dynamic, but they're going to be fun to watch. How much athleticism is in that lineup?
Oh, it's ridiculous. And I think that we keep bringing up the lack of positions, but I think that's, again, what we're going to see here. They've already talked about how they envision Williams and Gay being able to switch on every screen. Just anything that's even close to a screen, they have the versatility to switch. And I think it'll work the same way on offense, where the other team is kind of confused as to who should guard who because they don't know who's at the 3 and who's at the 4. I think that's the ideal situation, but whether Williams is actually good enough to play either position is still up in the air.
Yeah, that's definitely still up in the air. I'm also kind of interested to see how that Cousins-Gay dynamic actually works. Like, we can say it looks good on paper, it looks bad on paper, but is Gay, and let's be honest, is Gay the number 1A that Cousins has always needed? He's kind of always he's never had it, but now he kind of has at least an equal sidekick, which he's never had. What if that has some sort of huge effect on him? He's already having a good year. What if Gay is, and I know you never, what if Gay is the veteran guy that is needed to ground Cousins?
I don't know. I think it was Dan Feldman who was talking about this on Twitter yesterday, or right after the trade happened, and he said that he's not concerned about how these players fit together more than ever before because neither of them fit with anybody.
I actually saw that, and I guess that's a good point.
So that's my biggest concern. I don't know that either one of them can stop being a black hole. And I have no idea what happens when two black holes try and interact with each other.
No, I guess we're gonna find out. All right, I kind of want to do something here. Who do you think? Well, all right. Well, let's start. We'll do it in the scheme of the West. Where do you think Sacramento finishes in the West now?
I think they're still the second to worst team in the West. They're better only than the Jazz. Now, are they going to jump?
I actually didn't think they were going to jump either. But now the bigger question: where do you think they fit in the scheme of the league? Right now, they're the 4th worst team. Do you think they bring and keep in mind that one of the teams behind them is the Knicks. So, do you think that they can climb up, and how far?
Well, I think the Knicks are going to pass them. We've established that in the past, so we're just going to gloss over that. But, again, it's a hard question because while Gay is the big name with the big salary, we don't know whether he makes the team better or worse. I think he made Toronto a little worse, and frankly, I'm concerned that he's going to do the same thing in Sacramento, especially because he's going to be trying to play in a situation that he hasn't really played before, that stretch four role. So I'm actually going to say they still stagnate. They're still going to be right around the third or fourth worst team. But the problem is now you have so many forwards that you've kind of knocked yourself out of the desire to take Parker, Randall, or Wiggins if Gay opts in.
They actually have less forwards now. And I know they're talking about moving Jason Thompson,
I'm talking
too.
about quality potential forwards.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, if they wind up getting that lottery pick, like a top 3 or something, they'll move someone. I don't think they're going to look at it as like, oh, we can't draft Jabari because we have Gay and Derek Williams.
Sure.
But that's what I was most interested to see is then now, which would bring me to the next part of this, if they still get a top 5 pick, so if they made a lateral move here, do you think this trade becomes a win for them because then they have Gay and this top 5 pick, or no?
I don't think we can answer that question until we know whether Gay opts in or out. Because if he opts in for those $19 million, then they have no financial flexibility, especially after they pay that high first-round pick. So it all depends on how much money they're going to have, because they won't have a complete lineup, and they'll need to make more changes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those questions that we just kind of have to defer right now.
That's fair.
Now, I'm actually more interested in where Toronto finishes now. Because they were one of those teams on the fringe of making the playoffs in the East. I think they were sitting at number 8 when the trade was made. Do you see them making the playoffs after this? Do you see them falling back?
Yes. Only because
what does yes mean?
I say yes, they're falling back, if only because I can't see both the Brooklyn Nets and the New York Knicks sucking wind the rest of the year. And I could also see the Cavaliers maybe even getting better. And I think that Toronto probably finish around, they won't fall far, maybe 9th or 10th, but there's also the risk, like you said, of addition by subtraction. If they wind up making the playoffs, I won't call this trade a failure, but then it's kind of like almost a lateral move. But it's also tough to answer because Masai's not done. Like you said,
and that's why I say they definitely move down.
I think once he's done, they should be a bottom 3 or 4 team in the East if Masai has his way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think that you can justify making this trade for any reason other than pure salary reasons.
Nope.
Which means that once Vasquez is here, Lowry's gone. He's going to move DeRozan if he can, even though DeRozan has been playing lights out this season.
Yep, he'll move DeRozan.
I think we're going to be looking at like almost a complete dearth of talent, of established talent in Toronto this season, and the intention is to build everything around Valanciunas.
My last question. Would you, if it meant getting rid of 2 choice bad contracts on the Raptors, would you trade Giannis?
No.
Thank you. Well, he's actually not, according to reports. He said Masai's willing to trade everybody, and the only reason I think that he's not untouchable would be because if they can get rid of contracts like Fields is...
I've heard of the term smokescreen.
I understand smokescreen, but I feel like if he was able to dump, they still have a few bad contracts.
I think he's going to be able to dump regardless of whether they trade Valanciunas or not. And everything has been geared towards building around him, especially now that they're going to see what he can do with a pick-and-roll point guard like Vasquez. So I don't have any concerns. And now that we've answered that, it's time to move into our favorite segment.
Bacon! Bacon! Where's the bacon? I smell bacon! 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 Gotta be bacon! Only one thing smells like bacon! That's bacon!
Dan's bacon.
I'm going to tell you what's making me sizzle right now. We're going to talk about Gay's former team, the Memphis Grizzlies. You lost Marc Gasol, Quincy Pondexter's down for the season, and Tony Allen isn't healthy. Blow shit up. Trade Randolph, see if you can attach Tayshaun Prince to some of these deals. Now it's officially time to rebuild. You really started a movement that you half-assed once you traded Rudy Gay last year. Rudy Gay had his best days in Memphis. Their horrible offense covered up so much of what we know about him now, because even though he was a horrible shooter, we were like, oh my god, points. Memphis doesn't score points. Rudy Gay scores points. This is great. But you're half-assing it right now. What is Zebo still doing there? You guys aren't even going to make the playoffs. You won 56 games last year, and you were 5th in the Western Conference. You're playing 500 basketball. You're not going to make the playoffs. You're not going to contend for a title. And Zebo's value is only going to go down. Now he's at the point where you can get value and get rid of some of your bad contracts. You have Gasol's contracts up after next year. You need to put yourself in a position to build a contender then. You guys are floundering. You're paying $68 million for this roster of shit. Blow shit up. I just want to see the Grizzlies blow shit up.
All right, so that's what's making Dan sizzle. We have a lot to cover here, so we want somebody to leave a comment. Seriously, please, someone leave a comment. We want to know what you think about Kobe's return, what he's going to do in the future. We want to know what you think about the Rudy Gay trade and the Memphis Grizzlies. Again, for Dan Favale, this is Adam Fromal with the Full Court Press.